Joey Nubsy's the AM whisperer, always talking about challengers and this and this and that, and blah blah blah. When they go to pick people up, they have the two most veteran teams in the scene.
They're beating all the teams that they're supposed to beat, right? The teams that are the bottom feeders of the league.
They probably did what they thought was best, but it failed. Like they failed.
Welcome to Reverse Sweep's Review Show, presented by USA Insurance. I'm your host, Katie Bedford, joined by Enable and Pacman as always. And guys, was this week more exciting than last week?
Yes, by default. It was.
By default.
Well, last week, nothing happened. Nothing at all happened out of the ordinary. So I have to say that this week was more exciting, and we did get some close matches too.
Enable positivity from Pacman. I like that. I like that a lot.
It's rare. You don't see it often. Let's take a look at some of the results.
I know. You don't see it often, but let's take a look at some of those results. We're trying to say that you are our lovable grouch.
All right, whatever.
Let's take a look at some of those results, guys, from this week. FaZe 3-0s on the first day. 3-0s out of FaZe and Dallas onto Seattle and Guerrillas. You got teams like Paris Legion getting a win, perhaps one of the big surprises of the week over LA Thieves. Subliners going flawless on the week. Toronto, OpTic, Minnesota coming out on top. And of course, FaZe handing Thieves their second loss of the week. A tough one for them, to be sure. And let's get right into it. Let's keep talking about LA Thieves. You lose 3-1 to Paris. You get swept by FaZe. Enable, I'm going to hand it off to you first. Are you worried for LA Thieves, or do you still think TJ maybe needs some time to kind of get back into things?
No, I'm definitely worried. Like I would hit the red button, the panic button. They don't look anywhere near where they were with Teach, and it's not like it's on him necessarily, because he was obviously out of the loop and he wasn't getting the pro reps. Draza hasn't looked good. Venom, none of them have really looked good. So I don't know if there is any issues behind the scenes, with the overall team vibe. More importantly, the players just seem like they're slumping. Multiple players are slumping at the same time, and this is not the time in the year that you want to be in a situation where you aren't playing your best Call of Duty. So I don't know what they can do or what they need to do, honestly. But I'm worried about them. Yes, I am worried.
Katie, they suck. They suck.
That was basically what I was.
They officially suck. They officially suck. I don't know. And also, they made FaZe look like John Wick, and
come on,
they killed his dog.
Yeah, they put about up as much of a fight as OpTic did, which was not much.
They got put down bad. And honestly, before the week, we said this was an extremely important week and match for LA Thieves. Honestly, I just assumed they would beat Paris. I did. Maybe that's a mistake on my end, but I did. I assumed they would beat Paris, and then we would see how far they've come when they play Atlanta FaZe. I remember the week before, they played a terrible match against Seattle. They just happened to be playing Seattle, so they got the win. We were like, if they play like this versus Atlanta FaZe, what's going to happen?
And then they played like that.
And they played exactly like that for 2 straight matches and lost them both.
Yeah, but Paris is like a Seattle, right? You'd be like, there's just... I mean, in the sense that you're just like, it's a very safe bet to assume even if you're struggling, you're going to beat them.
Right, but they're better than Seattle, and that obviously was the key factor. Scraps ended up going on streaks against them in every single respawn, and they clutched up and beat them. And it's just, now you're at a point where with LA Thieves where I don't even know what the hell they do, right? You can't bring back Kyler. It's just not going to work. You tried that. You can't bring back Huke. I don't even know if you use Slasher at this point. Slasher has been on the bench for so damn long. The move they made was obviously the worst possible move at the worst possible time, right before the major, and now they're in such a weird spot. I would be extremely worried if I was an LA Thieves fan. Like, none of their matches, they don't even look, I guess, it's because you know that they have that potential. But if we never saw what they did,
before, they brought FaZe to
that game 5, and now they're so far from where they were then. It's terrifying, and I'm like, what is... So now, I mean, obviously the management and Cap, they probably did what they thought was best, but it failed. Like, they failed bad, and they failed the team bad, and they failed their fans bad, and now they're in a bad spot at the worst possible time. If they don't turn it around, they're going to be in losers bracket, and I don't know, it's just not where you want to be, like Ian said, right at the worst possible time of the year, and it's kind of terrifying. Their teamwork was not there. I saw something crazy where if you saw the entire FaZe hardpoint versus LA Thieves, the map wasn't close. Like it just wasn't close. But LA Thieves actually did more damage on the map than Atlanta FaZe. They actually put in more damage, which is ridiculous to think about, right? Like, how are you putting in more damage and the map isn't close? What does that mean? That means FaZe is literally staying alive at all possible times and baiting, switching, and doing what they need to do and getting the key kills and making it look easy when in fact it's not easy. Of course, you're playing them against other top players, but you're not finishing your kills. You're not working together. You're not doing what you need to do to kill these guys, and then they're punishing you. And it's just a tough spot to be in.
How often have you guys seen a situation like this where, say, someone gets benched and then brought back in? How often do you see it kind of collapse the team and never find that form they had before versus that person coming back in after being benched and they are able to find that form again? Does it usually go this way historically?
Yeah. I mean, I just feel like it does, because at least in the past, if this were to happen, one or two things occurs, right? Either the team really didn't want to play with the player that they benched originally, and then things didn't pan out, whether they couldn't get a player that they wanted. And then so when they bring the player they benched originally back, they still don't want to play with them, so the vibes are off. Or the opposite, the player gets benched and he just doesn't want to play with the team anymore. Like, he's already past being teammates with those players. So it's like, even if you say you put it all behind you, I feel like subconsciously there is that, it's in your head. And
right.
I mean, I feel like it is a little unfair to say that. I guess that is what the reason is behind them not looking as good as they did before with Teach. It's just tough. It's like Pac said, Katie, they tried something, it clearly didn't work, and it could have messed up the potential that LAT could have had for the rest of the year.
Thing is, Katie, with your question, in the past, so CDL is new, right? This is the second year. In the past, it wasn't benching, right? They essentially just dropped you.
Yeah.
And then they would go somewhere else and they'd pick you back up. And if you wanted to be back on the team, still that, like Ian said, there's still that lingering thought. Like, at some point when they dropped you, excuse my language, but at some point they're like, that guy's gonna be like, fuck you guys. He just is.
Yep.
And then he comes back, and in the back of his head, it's going to be there. And Teach probably went through that too, just in a different way. Nowadays, people never say anything publicly or whatever. You're still contracted. You're in a spot. But he got dropped after playing well, and the team was
and they were
really
improving.
looking good. Yeah, they were trending up, and then he got dropped. So there's no way in his head, at some point, he didn't say, fuck you guys. He did. He had to have. That's just human nature. Then he comes back into the spot, and no fault of his or whatever it may be, but obviously it's not working out. So,
well, we'll have to see. They can get anything going to try and avoid starting in losers for the first LAN of the year, guys. Reminder again, that Stage 4 major will be on LAN in Texas. Also, a reminder, Reverse Sweep is presented by USAA Insurance. They make it easy to insure your stuff like your rigs and gear, and they have your back. Eligibility restrictions apply. Insurance provided by the United Services Automobile Association and its affiliates, San Antonio, Texas. Moving on to Dallas. Dallas, we've seen a decent amount of them now with Vivid. They go to that game 5 with New York. They actually look pretty decent. The control they clutch up. They get the S&D. They go up 3-0 in the standoff game 5. We're not going to talk about map 1 that choked, but the game 5, they go up 3-0, guys, and, well, they lose. They lose. You guys saw how upset Crim was through his headset, visibly angry. So Dallas, looking better or worse with Vivid? What is your take on what you've seen so far?
I think they look better than they did. If we're talking about better than they were with FeLo, I would say they look better than they did with FeLo. I mean, that's bound to happen, though, because now they're with their team that they know they're going to be playing the rest of the year out with. They lost a really close series to a top team, and they were right in that. They could have won that. They probably should have won that, but they just didn't close out. And to me, that's a good sign. Like, obviously, Crim was pissed. You don't want to lose, blah, blah, blah. But to be right there in those series, that's what really counts, to be right there with those top teams. Because essentially,
it was competitive.
Whatever we talk about, whenever we say it's a competitive series and, actually a gunfight or a decision could have swayed the series, that's when it's actually true. A decision could have swayed the series in their favor, and that's a top team. That's what you want to see. Now they can go over it and actually break it down and see where they can make those small changes and make those tweaks to their gameplay and win. So I think that this is a good thing for Dallas, and I think they're going in the right direction.
Spot on, John. Spot on. I mean, you can see the potential that they have with Vivid, right? And this was the reason why they wanted to pick him up. I thought he looked a little uncomfortable the first couple series with Empire, where I wasn't really a believer in them. But you really show or you really saw how good they could be. I mean, I think that they should have won that series versus NYSL, and NYSL is a top 3 team in the game. You know, they choked the map 1, they were up 3-0, and then I believe they were up 4-2 in the S&D, and NYSL clutched up. But Vivid looked great, and I think if he can play like that, Empire can have a chance to get back to where they were early in the year.
Yeah, I mean, I think we can all agree, like, even that loss, it was a good loss in that kind of sense, that it's not like you got beat down. It's not like you weren't competitive. It's not like there weren't improvements there. So yeah, I'm actually, they're a team that I'm becoming more excited to watch again, because I think there's starting to be this potentially with Vivid. But let's talk about Subliners and the other team on that coin. As Crim was disappointed, Clayster jubilant in kind of going to that game 5, taking down Dallas, you know, very, very happy with that. And I think there's something to be said there about the fact that if you pull up the full stats for that series, Asim overall was a 0.97, Clay was a 0.93, and the team won. Again, they were down by 3 rounds in the standoff. They came back. You had great play by Mac. He had a 1.27 overall. He had 21,000 damage. He was excellent. So, Enable, Subliners, do you think they look as strong as they did from the major, the most recent major, or where do you put them at? As strong, a little less, a little more?
I definitely put them as strong as they were. I mean, there's 2 things for sure. 1, they still look very good in respawn. And 2, they have ice. They got the ice. They're clutching up in these series, and that's a positive, because sometimes you're gonna have off days, and if you could still find the ability to win those series, that's huge. Another thing too is supposedly some of the players on New York weren't feeling the best. I heard that Hydra was sick or is still sick.
Yeah.
Like they think he had like food poisoning or something. Asim was having issues. He's playing at a disadvantage because he's still in Toronto, and a lot of these servers are really bad for him compared to the other players. So it's like, even with all the issues that they have, they still are winning series and they still look really good. So I think if anything, they might even be in a better spot now than they were at the major.
I guess there's 2 ways to look at it. Of course, there's the ice, right? So they were clutching up these maps and these game 5s, excuse me, and that's important. Obviously, you're gonna go to those game 5s like they did against FaZe in the winners finals last time, and they clutched up. That's what you need to do. No one can take that away from you. They're a really top team. They're obviously there, but there's the part of me that says, why are you consistently going game 5 now? Now, I don't buy the whole server thing with them, because let's face it, they're freaking winning all their respawns online. They're good online.
Fair.
So that I'm gonna throw that out the window. If they're sick, they're sick. And I mean, I don't know the level of sickness, no one does, but apparently they were going through it. So that's props to them. Maybe that is part of it. I'm just saying, I'm looking at the other side of it. To me, they're a top 3 team in the game. Let's not take anything away from them, but to consistently be going to game 5s this week, maybe that's a little worrying. Maybe teams are catching up to them.
Their control still doesn't look great.
Right. And if you go to game 5s consistently when it matters on LAN, you can't win them all on LAN. Like it's just impossible. So if they don't reclaim maybe some of that dominant form, I guess I'd be worried for them in terms of winning the championship. But in terms of just being a top team, I think they're still right there. They're obviously top 3 and they're good. You can make an argument that they're top 2.
So they're right there, but Pacman, who do you put your money on if Subliners go up against a Toronto or a FaZe in a best of 9 in a grand final?
Well, I would take either Toronto or FaZe over them in a best of 9. I feel like both those teams are just too consistent. FaZe is like final boss right now. In a best of 9 on LAN, I don't see how any team can beat FaZe. I mean, it'd
be impossible.
Vance does that Zen shit, and he's got it.
Like, it just lands also a different beast. Like when you're getting gunned on LAN consistently, and their teamwork's on point, it just feels different than it does online. LAN is just a different experience, and to beat them in a long series means that you have to be on your game for just 2 hours against FaZe, and that's just tough.
All right, well then, New York guys, let us know. By the way, too, do you think obviously best of 5, maybe anything can happen, but a best of 9? Do you guys think New York can take on someone like a Toronto or a FaZe in their current strength. OpTic, though, is their momentum real? We've touched on some of these top teams, obviously the Dallases, the New Yorks, but what about OpTic? They 3-1 Paris, but Paris, kind of one of those bottom teams, but not, Seattle. So OpTic, where do you guys think they sit right now? Do you think they're looking better? I mean, we've already touched on it, so not beat a dead horse, but they got mollywopped by FaZe. So where do you put OpTic right now? How strong do you think they are? How much momentum do you think that they have as we're getting into the latter half of this stage?
I mean, this is OpTic we're talking about. They're supposed to beat these teams, right? They're undefeated, I think, against teams not in the top 4. It's something crazy like that, where they're beating all the teams that they're supposed to beat, right? The teams that are the bottom feeders of the league, but they just can't seem to get anything going. First the FaZes, first the Torontos, first the NYSL. Mm-hmm. Like it can be close sometimes, obviously not with FaZe, but I'll use that as an outlier with the other 2 top teams. They just can't do it. They can't get over the hump. I don't know if it's a mental block or what. Maybe things will change going to LAN, but I think they're there. They're just a tier below the top teams right now.
I mean, I agree with Ian. They're a tier below the top teams, and I have to believe that it's a mental block, though, because we see other teams play the teams that are ahead of OpTic a lot closer than we see OpTic play them, if that makes sense. But then OpTic goes off and just beats these other teams. It's got to be a confidence thing heading into the series, like a true confidence thing. Anyone can say that they believe they're going to win, but do they actually feel like they're going to win? I'm just not sure of it, because OpTic is good. Mm-hmm. At this point in the game, OpTic is a good team. I would take them against most of the field in a match right now. They're a really good team. But when it comes to winning, I don't think there's a chance that they actually win the championship. I just don't. It's like they're super outside of that for me. So I don't know what to really believe about them, because they're a tier below and seem to have some sort of mental block against the top teams. It just puts them at a place where I don't view them as a championship team, but a really good team nonetheless.
How do teams, or maybe players individually perhaps, overcome something like that? Like, have you seen that before, where someone successfully is able to kind of overcome a mental block per se? Because that's kind of a nebulous concept, right? It's hard to nail down into something specific. Have you seen people overcome something like that? And if so, how would OpTic go about doing that?
I mean, this is going to sound stupid, but they just have to do it. It's tough, because mental blocks are a real thing, especially in professional Call of Duty. And I mean, I'm sure it's happened in the past, but I don't know if John can. I can't think or remember anything specifically, but they just need to be able to take a series off these guys. And not even just at this point, you probably, even if you scrape by, you win, but you want a nice dominant victory over one of these top teams, just so everyone is like, you know what, we can do this. Because even if they're competitors, they're not going to tell you we have a mental block, but it's clearly got to be there if they can't do it. And so if you can get a nice solid win, I think we could see OpTic really breaking that top tier and then being like a legitimate contender for the rest of the year.
Yeah, I can't really think of any teams or any people actively getting over a mental block, but I'm like Ian said, it had to have happened at some point. Maybe the most recent thing I can think of is possibly someone like Celium. I don't know if you remember, but when Celium first played on LAN against OpTic, specifically, he got dumpstered. He had one of the worst professional series of all time. Yeah, one of the worst ever. And that was LAN, and that's the whole crowd going against him, and he's a kid, and blah blah blah. And all his teammates are like, this guy's disgusting. I've seen him do ridiculous things. And then he goes on and gets more experience under his belt and gets over that, and he becomes one of the better Respawn players in Black Ops 4 towards the end. And maybe it's something like that where, like Ian said, he just had to do it. He had to believe that he could beat a top team. They would get those. But back then, we were in the studio in Columbus. Mm-hmm. He got to play more top teams on LAN, maybe not in a tournament environment, but at least he was playing them on LAN, so he could see I'm better than this guy, I'm better than this guy, I'm better than this guy, and then he can get over it. And so, like Ian said, I guess the only real way to get over mental block is to do it, is to put in the reps, because there's no mental ninjutsu that you can do. Because once it comes down to playing, it's I don't know. You just have to do it. It's rough.
Well, it's time, guys, for the most clutch moments of the week with Got You Covered, presented by USAA Insurance. Level up your gear protection with USAA Insurance. So looking back on the week, the best moments, the most clutch moments of the week, enable, as always, would you like
Katie,
to
thank you.
start
Of course.
with your pick?
Of
Or
course.
slough it off to Pacman.
No, because I got a good one. For me, it has to be in the New York Subliners Dallas Empire Series Map 5, the standoff S&D. I believe the round count was 4-2 Empire. Huge swing round, because that could have been the dagger if Empire won it. But Clay made a very risky play, I believe. I think they were in a 3v4. He worked up mid-street, got a kill, stayed alive, got a 2-piece. They were able to clutch that round up, and you saw momentum shift after that. Like, Empire was deflated, and they really could have won that series right there in that round. So that was my clutch moment of the week. John, I know you were feeling it, but I'm sorry I had to steal that one from you.
Mine is just going to be the overall respawn performance from Scraps. So this is a bottom team in the league, and in order to get over that hump, sometimes you just need someone to kind of backpack you over that ledge, and Scraps did that. And every single respawn versus LA Thieves, he got streaks towards the end of the game. Every single one. He was the one kind of pushing the map towards Paris Legion's favor. And at a time when you're struggling like that, it could just be super hard, but he came with the fire and he did what he needed to do. Like, Scraps has been a player for years that has shown those flashes of brilliance. There's times when people were calling him a top player, and he really hasn't shown it this year. I think even in the loss versus OpTic, he showed that he's coming to some true form. And I think that Scraps' performance versus LA Thieves was tremendous. Like, he actually did everything he needed to do to push them over the edge and beat a team that is considered to be way higher than them on the tier list. So props to Scraps. I'm gonna give it to him.
I have to go with someone from Subliners as well. My big moment is Mac dropping multiple 40 bombs. You can be like, one is really impressive. He did it more than one in that series. He had a monster series, and Mac was someone who was not secure in his spot on Subliners, could have potentially been relegated down to a challengers team. And I think to see that from him is just awesome. He is a great player, and to kind of have such a takeover experience when everyone's talking about Hydra, everyone's talking about Asim. Mac came out and really just shows how much star power he could potentially have for Subliners. So seeing kind of multiple 40 bombs from him was fantastic. Multiple 40 bombs in a series. So it's just fun to witness from someone. But let's move on to our MVP, most valuable player. I'll let you guys duke out on this to take first dibs. Take it away, Pacman.
Simp. This guy is 1.4 KD plus almost 12,000 damage in a 10-minute series versus LA Thieves. Like, this guy is ridiculous, and it could be annoying because, listen, bro, I know that's your guys, but they suck. They got blown out. Someone needs to take over there that knows what they're doing. Anyways, Simp going crazy. 1.4, 12,000 damage, quick series, absolute takeover on the control. I've always said this. I don't like taking credit away from people just because they do it consistently. Like, it's impressive to me, the longevity of the dominance. It really is. That's the most impressive thing in all of competition to me, is when someone can do that for as long as he's doing it, as consistently as he's doing it. And he just did it again. Simp's unreal. Their whole team's unreal, and props to him on his performance for this week.
That was a decent answer. You know, it could have been worse. I'm gonna piggyback off of the player that Katie just brought up. It's got to be Mac for me. He has been not only phenomenal in this past week, so far in stage 4. He has, I believe, a top 3 overall KD. He's averaging the most hardpoint kills. Obviously, he had 2 40 bombs in one series. I mean, he had 21,000 damage in this series versus Empire. And like Katie said, there was a real possibility that he was going to be on the NYSL Academy team. Like, he was the first one when Hydra got the opportunity. He was the first one that was on the bench, and they were trying Hydra in place of Mac. And, you know, he didn't let that get to him. He's been playing lights out lately. We might be seeing Mac turn into another superstar on NYSL. With the way he's been playing lately, they might be tough. Pac, they might be tough. They might win a chip. I don't know, but
they might. They're in the running for the chip.
Well-deserved MVP.
Yep.
They are in the running for the chip.
Okay, mine's a little out there, and it's not really based on gameplay, but bear with me. So
what is it? What is it based on, Katie? I'm sorry.
It's based on heart.
Okay. Go ahead.
Okay, I have to give a shout out and props to Pristini, because every single time Seattle loses, every map, every series, everyone looks dead in the eyes except Pristini. He cares so much. It's so obvious how hard he's trying and how much he cares. And Gunless, Octane, Classic now, there's nothing there. They have resigned themselves to the mediocrity that is Seattle Surge. And I know Pacman is dying inside as I say this, but I can respect someone who at least still fucking cares when your team is that goddamn bad. I can respect that he's still fucking trying. So that's mine. Shout out to Pristini for not resigning himself to losing.
Your MVP is Pristini's eyes.
Not his
that
eyes,
ain't it, Katie. I'll be the one
I know,
that
no, you're gonna
that
say
one
it's
was
my girl.
that
thing.
one was not
But
it.
that's my take.
That
I don't care.
well,
I don't
that
care.
one was
That's my take.
not it.
That's my
That
take.
was not it.
I can
Try
respect
in the damn game. What are we talking about?
Yeah. Well,
Come on,
I can
after
respect
you
that
lose,
he's clearly trying. If you're losing like
Pierce
that,
got
and there's
like
no
14
reaction.
in the S&D and they threw. I'm trying the damn game. Pierce cares.
That's mine.
Anyways,
Deal with it, Pacman. LVPs. Would you like to go first?
Katie's answer. No, I'm playing.
That's gotta be. No.
Ian, do you want to go first? Or you want me to go first?
I can go first. I mean, I just feel like our answers always. Well, actually, your answer might be a little different.
Okay, give a spicy one like I did then. Throw something out there.
I got a real hot take for my LVP. LAG as a whole again for the 5th time. No, okay.
That was spicy.
I'll give
shocked.
you one. I'll give you a good one. I hate. I'm just gonna say it. Draza. Draza's my LVP. Draza's a player that I thought was fantastic when LAT first picked him up, and he's been looking really good, looking very consistent. He's basically, in my opinion, the second best player on the team behind Kenny. And this last week, he just didn't look good at all. Like I said, he was slumped. He looked like he was in a slump, and the whole team in general. But when Draza, who is running your flex, your second AR, is giving you a 0.8, it's going to be very hard to win, especially when you go up against a team like FaZe, best team in the game. So for me, if LAT wants to turn it around, he needs to step it up and really kind of keep developing as a player and get back to the consistent ways that he was at early on.
My LVP, LAG management, Seattle management, LA Thieves management. All three T3 worst managed teams in the league. T3 worst, bar none. I skip over teams like Paris and London who may have worse teams because Paris doesn't have exactly the resources that these other teams have. London has been going through it. I actually think London's done a really good job with what they've been dealt, right? Yeah. LAT, unlimited resources. Look at their roster. Ridiculous. Seattle, unlimited resources. Joey Nubsy's the AM whisperer, always talking about challengers and this and that and blah blah blah. When they go to pick people up, they have the two most veteran teams in the scene 2 years in a row, and then they pick up Decimate from the bench, who's a veteran, and then they pick up Classic, who's a veteran. So like, miss me with all like the challengers nonsense. You just went out and picked up veterans, and your team still sucks. Their management sucks. LA Thieves. 2 years in a row, you made a team that's amazing on paper. You can't be blamed there. But then you didn't do the moves. And then when you finally put the pieces together to make the right moves, you fucked it up. You switched it up right before the major. You fucked it up. When you finally did right, after 2 years, you messed it up, and now you suck. LAG, for the love of God, their matches are close, which has got to be the worst thing for the management or something to deal with, because they truly believe that if a couple things went different, they'd win the games. Wrong! You're never winning. You're never winning. You suck too. Do something. All three of those, put them in whatever order you like. I'd probably lead with Seattle just because they are the worst team for 2 straight years. But the management in all three situations needs to improve. Like from top to bottom, whoever's making decisions, you suck. Period. Get better.
Damn.
Well, hot damn. All right then. Passion in that answer. I liked it. Very quickly before we close it out, I'm gonna go with everyone who's not awakening in S&D for Florida. Please help him. I'm begging you. The amount of times that they've lost in S&D and Awakening has double-digit kills and he's like 11-2 or some bullshit and they still lose. I'm begging you to just please help Awakening. Please. And on that note, guys, that's it for our review show. You have our MVPs, LVPs. Let us know what you think. What are yours? Let us know in the comments section. But that'll be it for all three of us. We will see you next week after week 3 wraps up.